Let's get some more insight from the experts. Joining me now is Susan Brownell. She is a professor of anthropology at the University of Missouri in St. Louis. Susan, thanks very much for taking time to chat with us. I certainly appreciate it. I want to pick up on what we were just discussing in that story. Give me your early take on the games. Beijing, the first city to host both winter and summer games. And I also think it's fascinating that basically President Xi Jinping challenged some 300 million Chinese citizens to pick up winter sports, and they've done it since the games were announced. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's not surprising. I mean, on the one hand, there already was a lot of grassroots participation in skiing and skating in North China. I mean, maybe it was sort of flying under the radar screen, but I certainly have enjoyed skating a lot on the frozen lakes around Beijing in the winter, and I certainly know a lot of Chinese people who know how to skate. But now they're getting the chance to do it in better conditions because it can be pretty cold and dangerous on a lake, and but now they're getting rinks. I mean, 650 of them across China now, and ski slopes.
And yeah, exactly. And the ability to man-made snow now too is just grown by leaps and bounds as well. A bit about you though. You were a nationally ranked track and field athlete in the United States before joining the track team at Peking University and selected to represent Beijing in the '86 Chinese National College Games, where you set a record in the heptathlon back in '87, '88, and you spent a year at Beijing Sport University. To me, all this is fascinating. What have you really taken away from your time in China now that you look at the games unfolding? It must be very personal to you on one level.
It is. I had so many opportunities in China because I was an athlete, and sports opened so many doors for me. Really, ever since the era of ping pong diplomacy, sports have led China in opening up to the outside world. And this Olympic Games is just one more example of this. I think this, is going to continue to help China sort of integrate into the global economy.
It was amazing to watch the 2008 games, the way they unfolded with the opening ceremonies, closing ceremonies. What have you observed? How has the view of sports and being part of a lifestyle really evolved in China?
Oh, there's been a huge change. I mean, even as late as 2008, there was this continual problem that the sports in the Olympic Games were for elite athletes only and largely supported by the state-supported system, and the grassroots participation just wasn't there. But now it's 14 years later, and we're finally starting to see all sorts of development coming from, the grassroots and private clubs. So sports are now flourishing outside the state-supported system.
Exactly. Who has really kind of jumped out as some of the stars in the early part of the game? Certainly Eileen Gu.
Well, I think, for someone like me and for China watchers, Eileen Gu is just a fascinating figure. And, there are other athletes at the Games who are foreign-born that are representing China. But of course, she just won a gold medal, and she beat the Americans, and that's what's particularly interesting about her.
That's indeed. I had the pleasure of going to the 2002 Games in Utah. Now, growing winter sports have really surrounded industries. And I remember doing a story on guerrilla advertising back then. It has to hurt somewhat that hurt a lot, that there aren't fans to really take all this in and build on that enthusiasm. But what about the apparel, equipment, domestic brands? How big can they grow, and how much money are we talking about foreign brands dropping in?
Well, I think outside observers and experts, of which I'm not really, an economic expert, but from what I read, they think there's a lot of potential in the winter sports industry in China. And what's interesting is that it appears that it has been growing, particularly with the injection of funding that's been going on, and also the publicity surrounding the Olympics. While that industry has been hit really hard in Europe and the rest of the world because of the pandemic. So the fact that it's been able to grow in China, despite what's happening in the rest of the world, is really encouraging. I mean, in 2020, supposedly it was valued at about 90 billion US dollars, and it could easily increase at a rate of like 50% in the next couple of years.
Well, Susan, we have a lot more to talk about. The games are going to go on for some time. Hopefully we'll have you back on before the end. Susan Brownell, professor of anthropology at the University of Missouri, St. Louis. Thanks very much.
Thank you.